Airport security personnel of Reddit, what is the weirdest thing you have seen inside the passenger's luggage? Not sap, but I worked in a baggage room where bags sat idle until they were run to the plane or another transfer point. We typically didn't open bags unless they were leaking, vibrating or void of any information, and we needed to reroute them, hoping for some form of ID inside the bag. It's vital you properly tag your baggage, as the airline's tags are only held together by an adhesive strip that will detach should it get drenched, and trust me, they can get drenched. Oh, and some are just plain paper and disintegrate in a hoe. We had one guy come in from Paris with only a backpack. When it got to our bag room, a large red pool of something was eking out of the bag. Obviously our first thought is blood, so we put on some gloves and slowly opened the bag. There was canisters of extract and syrup in the bag. Blueberry, blackberry, raspberry, and strawberry. The strawberry had been badly damaged and was now leaking out of the bag and all over everything else. Dude also had a ton of whipped cream, like way more than anyone should ever have stuffed in this little backpack. He legit could have gotten these things from anywhere in the US, but opted to jam them in a backpack and ship them across the world, where one broke and definitely looked like a horror scene. We all knew better, but we were definitely waiting for there to be a head in there. There's also the time that for whatever reason a 5-gallon bucket of something squishy was left on the ramp. The gate called us to come get it. It was actually bleeding and smelled like BBQ. There was a picture of a pig on the side of the bucket and everything was in Spanish. We got a friend to translate it, and I forget what it was for, but the contents were sponge-like and filled with blood. Pretty gross. In college many years ago, I had a part-time job demonstrating a dollar counting machine. They were relatively new then. Once had to fly somewhere to give a demo and took my duffel bag full of $1 bills. The guy searching that bag called for his boss to come over. The boss was experienced enough to figure out that real drug dealers don't traffic in low value currency, and he kept me from being arrested. Next time put glitter on the bills so they think you are a stripper, not a drug dealer. I was traveling with a buddy from Canada to France. We were big into one card game that required pennies. So my friend, the character that he is, brought a glove full of around 1,000 pennies and without thinking, tossed it in his carry-on. Every security stop we went through, he had to dump out his glove of pennies and then put them all back into the glove. The first security check we went through, him and I were both staring at the screen, wondering what the hell was in his bag. The way it was placed, it looked like an awkward metal dinosaur. When I was about 10, we traveled with our 2 dachshunds in a soft carry case. My mom asked that lady if she had to put the dogs through the machine. Lady said yes. My mom asked again if she really had to put the dogs through the machine. Lady said yes again. My mom shrugged and said okay and placed them on the belt. They get through the scanner and the lady freaks out and asks my mom why she put dogs through the machine. My mom's like, I asked, you said I had to. Lady says, oh, I thought you said dolls. I had the exact same thing happen with my cat. Even asked twice. Lady thought I said laptop instead of gato, Spanish for cat, and yes, she spoke Spanish. The way she freaked out after she saw the scanner, I thought surely a dead cat was gonna come out on the other end. 4 years later he still hasn't grown a second head, so I guess he's safe, and I'm guessing your dogs were as well. A live spider. Passenger didn't know and wasn't large, but he opened his bag. It crawled out, and I screamed. Human ashes. Homemade dildos. The woman gave me her business card. A live cat. Antlers with rotting flesh still on them. My favorite was a magician's bag. Alerted for explosives. He kept pulling bits out of pockets and showing me bits of his act to distract you from the explosives, no doubt. I had to bring my mom to the place she wanted her ashes at. The first SAT agent had never had someone bring human ashes through before. She was very concerned and asked if she had to sort through it. The other agent looked at her and said, did you scan it? Yes. Did it scan clear? Yes. Then send them on their way. I would not have been pleased if they had to sift through my mother's ashes. Not airport personnel, but my parents own a small agriculture business in Peru and travel there multiple times per year carrying different types of equipment in their luggage. One time they went, and my sister went a week after them. My parents wanted her to carry around a chainsaw from Toronto to Peru. Apparently she got through fine in Toronto, but obviously got some weird looks. But once she got to Peru they started interrogating her and wanted her to pay a huge fine to bring the chainsaw through. It was only when she started crying that they felt bad and just let her go. My father travels a lot and was going through airport security one day in Europe when he noticed his bag was taking longer than usual to go through the x-ray. The security guys called over another guy and then another. They're all looking at the bag, gesturing and pointing. A guy finally came over to my father and asked, "Are you a mountain climber? We can't figure out what is in your bag, and climbing equipment is our best guess. You have some sort of metal hook in there." My father was absolutely not a mountain climber and happily opened his bag for them. He had bought a metal crane truck as a toy for my brother and it looked strange on the machine. They all started cracking up and asked if they could use the photo of the bag as training. It must have been a slow night. Edit. Similar to what he brought back. My grandmother emigrated to Spain and we were helping her move her stuff to the new place. My grandmother was 92 at the time, about 1.60 centimeters and a very neat and civilized person. Security checked her bag, checked it again, called some more security guys and pointed. And then they asked if she had anything in her bag that was illegal. Grandmother said no, and they asked if they could search it. They couldn't find anything at first, so they asked her again if she had a knife or something like that in the bag. Granny thought for a while and then she suddenly remembered, unzipped a hidden pocket and pulled out a 15 centimeter switchblade that she forgot about it. Apparently she used to carry a knife when she went to the market with her friends and wanted to get a bit of food that she needed to carve up, or she used it to shank birches, who knows. There's a lot of odd stuff found in checked baggage. Commercial fireworks, the mortars that shoot up in the sky and explode. Cops were involved. A skinned goat skull packed on top of clothing. It had obviously missed the plane. Sat for a day and that was a very bad day. Poorly sealed jars of rotting blended fish. Must be a delicacy somewhere. Undeclared firearms are fairly common. They don't necessarily pose a danger, but there's a right and wrong way to transport them. Not sap, but joined a tour of cats a week after 9/11. You can imagine adding a new one-way ticket for every flight leg of the tour into a group. If 60 plus raised a few flags, I got all my bags pulled over and searched in full view of everyone every time. At that time for big groups they did it before they got put on the belts. So we decided to start screwing with security. We put a gigantic red double dildo and lots of gay poon magazines. Yes, magazines. It was 2001. In my suitcase to watch their reaction. We started rotating it through different people's bags to see the different reactions and didn't tell everyone which bag it was in. I worked at an airport as a line tech. A former baggage screener, Preetsa, told me of the time he opened a bag and found a human skull. The passenger was an MD and had all the appropriate paperwork to transport the skull, but it was still surreal. Edit. My first piece of bling. Thank you, kind stranger. When my buddy went into a war zone to do his time on the ground, he left his skull to me in his living will. His mom went apeshit, but when he was questioned by the legal department over it, they couldn't find any law or regulation saying he couldn't do it. I'm a little late to the post, but here is my story from being that passenger. I was traveling to visit my now husband for the weekend and didn't want to check a bag, so I only had a carry-on. In my carry-on I had a big metal butt plug with a tail attached. You can imagine how that looked on the scanner. Everyone could see it on the x-ray too. There was a girl in front of me that got her boyfriend's attention and pointed at the screen and started laughing because she obviously knew what it was. It pulled my bag to the side and asked whose it was. I walked up with my beet red face as the girl laughed even harder. That SAT officer, who is an old Indian guy, then held up my butt plug by the tail and we had a conversation like this. "Sup, what is this?" Me, quietly, "A butt plug." Sup, looks confused and continues to inspect it and holds it by the plug and even smelled it. Sup, what is it? Me, "A sex toy." Sup, "A what?" Me, "A sex toy, like it goes up my butt." That SAT agent immediately got super embarrassed and put it back in my bag and covers it with some clothes before sending me on my way while I'm dying inside and the girl behind me can't contain herself. Flying out from spending time with my girlfriend in another state. I'm anxious and especially nervous while going through security, topped with being sad that I won't be seeing my girlfriend for another long period of time. I'm feeling a little weepy. My bag rolls through the scanner and I see the woman's face get all concerned and she calls over another agent to look at the screen. I'm thinking like, oh good, what now? She asks me, do you have a milkshake mixer in your luggage? I'm just taking it all in for a minute before it dawns on me. I have no idea what a milkshake mix looks like, but I know I don't have one. My Hitachi magic wand is in there. At this point, I'm feeling overwhelmed by everything, and now I'm pretty embarrassed, and there's more attention on me than I care for. So, I promptly burst into tears, sobbing, it's a vibrator. Obligatory not airport security, but my friend's daddy's. He told me about a woman who tried to take a whole cooked chicken through the scanner in her hoodie pocket. She tried to play it off that she was pregnant, but was clocked on the x-ray as having a weird looking baby. She then tried to eat it as fast as possible, whilst it was covered in hoodie fluff. She could have taken it through as well, if she'd just put it through with her luggage. I've told this story on Reddit before, but I was doing training in North Carolina. Went on a work trip. This guy who worked with me was in front of me on the bag scan. He went first, and they flagged it, and pulled him to the side. Asked if they could go through his bag. Well, they pull out a pocket fuzzy. My mouth drops. But they can't figure out what it was. 3 people are around it looking at it. And then they look at him. Ask him what it is. He doesn't say a fucking word. This of course leads me to bust out laughing. They call a supervisor over, and he is looking at it. Finally they tell him he can either tell them what it is, or they will keep it. He tells them to keep it, grabs his bag and walks off. I started laughing so hard I had to stomp my feet. We never discussed it again. That happened to me, except that SAT agent is a girl and she started waving it around, squeezing it, shaking it and stuff. I just asked for help from the nearby male SAT agent, and he just waved me through. This is a really hard question to answer seeing as I work at one of the busiest airports in the US. Here's a list of my top 5. A dead chicken. A dead dog. A bag full of liquor store poon. Poon that you'll only see sold at the liquor store. A bag full of 6 toys and lube, none of it in packaging or unopened. Like seriously, how much do you need? A bag of moldy fruit. Stank up the whole checkpoint and the guy acted as if it were normal to allow fruit to ripen beyond consumability in your backpack. It was damn near wine, y'all. I work for an airline and got called to secondary baggage screening today because someone on one of our flights checked a bag with like a dozen different kinds of knives, including hunting knives, a butterfly knife, and a few punch knives. Also 2 airsoft guns, handcuffs, a whole bunch of The Walking Dead books, and an box with a bunch of post-apocalyptic games like Fallout 4 and Left 4 Dead. It looked like he was unironically prepping for a zombie apocalypse tbh. The x-ray lit up like a Christmas tree. When I worked at a small regional airport pre 9/11, we just had Southwest Airlines come in, and they were running a promotion $39 from BWI Baltimore, Washington. Anyway, I got called over for a suspicious bag. I still remember it, red and black check plaid with leather corners, old school luggage. It had no ID tag, so we decided to open it to see if anything in it could be used to get an ID. Well, I put on some latex gloves and proceeded to open the bag. About 6 cockroaches ran out and 2 up my arm. As I continued to open the bag, I discovered a small electric hot plate, a beat up sauce pot, and like 2 pounds of used coffee grounds sprinkled over everything, and about 50 more cockroaches. Real hobo starter kit. Pretty odd stuff. Neither of these were in luggage, but lady had McGriddles tucked into each armpit. They both fell when she was asked to raise her arms for the scanner. She thought food wasn't allowed through, so she was gonna smuggle them in her armpits. I asked a lady if she had anything left in her pockets. She proceeded to reach into her shirt, down into her bra, pull out a set of teeth, and pop them into her face. Not necessarily weird, but definitely interesting. There was a Halloween convention in town, and there were a lot of prop companies coming through. This one lady had fake body parts. Brain, eyes, fingers, toes, intestines, a heart. Some of it looked very realistic, specifically the details on the fingers, toes, and eyes. My brother is so. He once stopped a guy for having an entire bag full of dead fish. Not frozen. Not on ice. Just raw ass fish in a bag. He also saw a dildo in some lady's carry-on, but I doubt it's the strangest someone's encountered. Last, not a strange item, but more of seriously? Situation. He stopped some lady from bringing a bottle of water past security. She told him, "Oh, that's not mine. It's my dog's water." He told her they sold dog water at the terminals. Oh man. So many things. Dearhead. Hunter wanted to carry it on the plane. Box was leaking. Airline said no. Hunter left it behind. Airline had to find someone to destroy it. So many sex toys. Mostly dildos. Ancient grandma with bondage gear. Cell-stripping chemicals. Stuff was labeled will cause cancer, may cause death. Do not breathe. Do not get on skin and other fun things. Stuff was used to break down human cells for various tests. Passenger used the stuff in his job. Gave it to the airlines to dispose of. The airline shelled out $1,000 or so for a special hazmat company to come get it. After a while, it's not all that weird. A Saudi young man pushed through the wrong door and sounded an alarm and generated a police response. I also responded, since it's a violation of federal regulations to enter unauthorized areas without permission or an escort in an airport. After the police and airport operations had talked to the guy and were going to go about their way, I went up and introduced myself and simply asked him, "What happened?" The guy launches into a story about how he was buying cigarettes at the airport gas station when a driver came up and propositioned him to put some items into his checked baggage and transport them to a member of the royal family back in Saudi. I ask him if he knows what the items are, and he says no. I inform the airline that this guy is saying he placed some items he has no clue about into his checked baggage. Police suddenly become interested again and order the bags removed from the aircraft. Skipping the boring stuff, come to find out he was transporting a bunch of boxes of powdered baby milk. I got the contact info for the driver who propositioned the guy and convinced him to come to the airport to pick up the milk since it didn't make the flight. He comes, I interview him and find out he runs a business of taxiing Saudi students to the airport. He also has a side business where Saudi royals text him pictures and links of items you can buy in the US, and he will buy them and then proposition young Saudi taxis to put the items in their checked bags and have them bring the items to the royals who will then give them a tip for their service. So basically, the guy was using young Saudis traveling back home as free shipping for items you can't buy back in Saudi. He showed me the texts he receives, and it's mainly pictures of liquor and perfumes, but this particularly day was a Saudi royal who wanted specific powdered milk for her newborn. And since he didn't have any taxi clients, he just waited at the gas station until he found someone who looked like a Saudi going back home. He gave me a ton of documents I didn't even request, including W-2s. No clue what happened to him. Ultimately he did not violate anything within my jurisdiction. Maybe some other agency picked up my report, who knows. But it was definitely a wild ride, and luckily ultimately harmless. A good lesson in the threat of the "oh hey can you do me a favor" routine. Cold bean a bomb that this young man unknowingly accepted. Cold bean a pound of cocaine. Also a good lesson in interviewing to ask simple open-ended questions. What happened? And let them talk. Police didn't uncover his story, so who knows what they actually asked him. Probably just assumed he didn't speak English and went through the wrong door. Hey you. If you enjoyed this video, why not consider subscribing to stay updated with all the upcoming videos? We post 2 videos every day. And remember to have a fantastic day.